Imagine calling the police every single year for over 4 decades, asking the same heartbreaking question. Have you found who killed my sister? Now imagine doing this knowing that the detectives had no suspects, no leads, and seemingly no hope of ever solving the case. For Priscilla Tate, this wasn't imagination. This was her reality for 43 years. But sometimes justice doesn't have an expiration date. Sometimes, a name buried in evidence resurfaces when you least expect it, and everything changes. November 15, 1983. A concerned citizen reports a suspicious van parked at a remote turnout along Highway 1 in California, about 3 miles north of the iconic Hearst Castle. When San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene, they discovered something that would haunt investigators for more than 4 decades. Inside the van was the body of 41-year-old Dorothy Tate, known to her friends and family as Toby. She had been shot to death. Toby Tate was far from a random victim. She was an adventurous spirit, a woman who embraced life with both hands. She loved nature, loved to travel, and had a sense of humor that could brighten the darkest days. Just the day before her murder, she had talked excitedly about taking her 2 dogs to the beach so they could see the Pacific Ocean for the first time. She was driving from her home in Estes Park, Colorado to California on a mission of compassion. One of her twin aunts had recently passed away, and Toby wanted to make sure the surviving aunt wouldn't have to celebrate her birthday alone for the first time in their lives. It was supposed to be a journey of love and family connection. Instead, it became a crime scene that would perplex investigators for generations. When detectives processed the scene, they found crucial evidence. There was blood that didn't belong to the victim. There were fingerprints on a Coca-Cola can left at the scene. They discovered that Toby's camera had been stolen from the van and was later traced to a pawn shop, changing hands multiple times before the trail went completely cold. Investigators worked tirelessly, running the fingerprints through every database available in 1983. They sent requests to agencies across multiple states. They followed every possible lead, but nothing matched. No suspects emerged. No arrests were made. The case that should have been solvable with the evidence they had became a mystery that seemed destined to remain unsolved forever. Toby's sister Priscilla refused to let her sister be forgotten. Every single year she called the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office. Every year, she asked if there was any progress. Every year she was met with the same devastating answer: no. But Priscilla's persistence served a purpose beyond her own need for closure. Her annual calls kept Toby's case from being completely buried in the archives. They reminded detectives that someone out there still cared, still waited, still hoped for justice. The case sat cold for decades. Technology advanced, databases expanded, new investigative techniques emerged, but Toby Tate's murder remained unsolved. That is, until Detective Clint Cole decided to take another look. Cole had already made a name for himself in the cold case unit. He had helped solve other high-profile cases in San Luis Obispo County, including the infamous Kristen Smart murder from 1996. He understood that modern forensic science could breathe new life into old cases, and he believed Toby Tate deserved another chance at justice. In 2023, Detective Cole made a critical decision. He partnered with Othram, a cutting-edge forensic DNA laboratory in Texas that specialized in using advanced genealogical techniques to identify suspects. The blood evidence recovered from Toby's van in 1983 had been preserved all these years. Traditional DNA testing had been performed previously, and while investigators had successfully developed a male DNA profile, it didn't match anyone in CODIS or any other criminal database. The case had hit another wall. But Cole knew that forensic genetic genealogy was different. Instead of looking for exact matches, this revolutionary technique could build family trees from DNA, finding relatives of the unknown suspect and working backward to identify who they were. The Othram scientists went to work using what they call forensic-grade genome sequencing. They took the DNA extract from the original crime scene evidence and built a comprehensive genetic profile. Then came the painstaking genealogical research, tracing family connections, building family trees, and following leads that had never existed before. And that's when a name surfaced: Stephen Richard Hardy, a resident of Texas at the time of the murder. But Hardy wasn't the only one. Remember that Coca-Cola can found at the crime scene back in 1983? The fingerprints that had been run through every available database with no results. Detective Cole had those prints reanalyzed with modern fingerprint identification systems, and this time something remarkable happened. The prints matched a man named Charlie Sneed, also a resident of Texas in 1983. 2 names. 2 men who had somehow evaded detection for over 40 years. 2 men who appeared to have committed what investigators now believe was a burglary or robbery that turned into murder. The property stolen from Toby's van, the camera and other belongings, had been pawned in California shortly after her death. The evidence indicated that these two men from Texas had encountered Toby on that remote stretch of Highway 1, and what should have been a chance encounter became a tragedy that destroyed a family and created decades of unanswered questions. There was just one problem. Both Stephen Richard Hardy and Charlie Sneed were already dead. Hardy and Sneed had passed away years earlier, taking their secrets to the grave. They would never stand trial. They would never face Toby's sister in a courtroom. They would never be forced to answer for what they had done on that November day in 1983. But Detective Cole wasn't deterred. He compiled all the evidence, the DNA analysis, the fingerprint matches, the genealogical research, and submitted it to the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney's Office. The district attorney reviewed the case and made an official determination. There was sufficient probable cause to have prosecuted both Stephen Richard Hardy and Charlie Sneed had they still been alive. The evidence against them was that strong. No other suspects were indicated by the evidence. The case that had tormented a family for 43 years, the case that had no suspects for 4 decades, was now officially solved and closed as exceptionally cleared. When Priscilla Tate finally met Detective Cole in person after learning that her sister's killers had been identified, she could barely believe it. For 43 years, she had lived with what she called a ghost, the unanswered question of who took her sister's life and why. She had given up hope of ever knowing the truth, but thanks to Detective Cole's determination and the power of modern forensic science, that ghost could finally rest. Priscilla said she could finally remember all the happy things about Toby without that crushing weight of not knowing. She could remember her sister's sense of humor, her adventurous spirit, her kindness. She could remember Toby as she was in life, not just as a victim of an unsolved murder. This case demonstrates something profound about the nature of justice and the importance of never giving up. It shows us that evidence preserved with care can speak decades later in ways that weren't possible when it was first collected. It reminds us that cold cases aren't closed cases, they're just waiting for the right technology, the right detective, and the right moment to reveal their secrets. And it proves that families like Priscilla Tate's, who refuse to let their loved ones be forgotten, play a crucial role in keeping these cases alive until answers finally emerge. The Toby Tate case is far from unique in the modern era of forensic genealogy. Across the country, cold cases that seemed impossible to solve are suddenly breaking open. Murders from the 70s, 80s, and 90s are being solved through DNA technology that didn't exist when the crimes occurred. Families who had resigned themselves to never knowing the truth are getting phone calls they never expected to receive. And detectives who inherited unsolved cases from retired predecessors are finally able to bring closure to victims and their families. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of persistence and the incredible advances in forensic science, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to bringing you real stories of justice, mysteries solved, and the tireless work of investigators who refuse to give up. When you subscribe, you're joining a community that believes every victim deserves to have their story told and every family deserves answers. And don't forget to like this video and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the cases that captivate us all. Because as we've seen today, sometimes justice is just one breakthrough away, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.